Yeah. If it was a consistent high frame rate the entire time, then I wouldn't have had an issue with it. Because my feeling about the high frame rate thing is like, it only looks weird because we're not used to it, and we only see
I don't
high frame rate in certain. Sorry,
I don't think there was lower frame.
You're the only person I talk to that doesn't feel that way. There's literally okay, but there were literally.
I would really like to hear how like the frame rates work because I'm not an expert on it.
It was
really
dependent on shot.
much.
It wasn't like, oh, the projector was, chugging along, or like it wasn't like it seemed intentional from the film, and it was only those shots. It wouldn't bleed into the next shot of like being a lower frame rate. It would be like as soon as the cut happens, it would be a different frame rate.
I thought I was losing my mind, and maybe it was just a me thing, but I did like look up some articles about it afterwards, and I found one on cnbc.com. Where it's apparently like it's an artistic choice. It's this aesthetic that they want to kind of implement on certain movies now, I guess.
That's how it felt.
Like this quote, what does it say? Yeah, the result is that Avatar: The Way of Water is the first major film to be released in a high frame rate but adjusted to keep its cinematic look. In the case of the Avatar sequel, the action and underwater sequences will run at a higher frame rate, allowing the motion to look better and more realistic, while dramatic scenes have been adjusted to look like the traditional 24 frames per second standard the audiences are accustomed to. It's a tool for the director to create the look that he or she wants shot by shot, Miller says. It's used selectively. Some shots may not need the tool at all.
Yeah, it was so weird. It'd be like, 1 out of every like 20 shots in some scenes would just be like a noticeably slower frame rate. And I was like, well, what the fuck? And it was pissing me off because it was just taking me out of the movie. Like, it wasn't like, just be a consistent frame rate. I don't want to be thinking about the frame rate. I want to just get used to it and be in the movie. I want to be in the universe.
Well, because personally, if I had a choice, I would have preferred to see a 24 frames version first, and then maybe
show me solid 60.
But I didn't realize this was even a thing.
Beginning to end, show me the same frame rate. Whatever, make it whatever frame rate you want. Just like don't be changing it like for all these shots.
Yeah, I really just didn't notice that at all, so it didn't bother me. I saw it twice that way. It didn't bother me. I thought it looked really good. I thought it's like the best CGI I've ever seen. Really, I can't think of a better looking film in terms of special effects than this. I think it's like 99% CGI, basically. Like there's a couple of human characters, but it's mostly CGI. And I think like the 3D and the frame rates meant to enhance certain shots and certain scenes. I don't know. I really didn't notice the frame rate changing. I thought the whole thing was 48.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's the highest it goes.
Speed the frames were, but it was definitely not consistent, which is my big problem.
Yeah, the water and stuff. I think it's like a huge improvement from the first one in terms of the CG and that stuff.
The water looks incredible. I just thought it
looks so much better. The
water is the main character of the film, really.
I mean, their skin looks real and just stuff like that. And the underwater sequences are amazing and how they use the 3D. It's like the best 3D movie I've seen. I can't even think of the last movie like I've seen in 3D Avatar. Actually. Probably Gravity, maybe. Yeah, it's been a long time, right?
I can do without 3D. I don't feel like that helped me in any way. It was kind of just like we're back to this gimmick thing,
No, I thought the 3D helped with it. No, I think, we talked about how the first one used 3D really well. I think he used 3D well in this one, too. I don't think there's like a huge difference. I thought he used it better in this one.
Because you can tell like certain shots are framed to make it pop as like much as possible with how
there's scenes where like the bullets are flying at the camera. It's like, oh shit, that's cool. Yeah. And like all the underwater stuff is also obviously really cool in 3D.
I feel like my brain just kind of just gets used to it after the first like 10 minutes and I don't like notice it, but it doesn't like add to it.
I feel like that with most movies, but the way he used it in this, there were like these set pieces again where like, okay, they go underwater and there's like these glowing fish that are like tiny and they swim around. I'm like, oh shit. Like, he makes it pop at certain points. Like again, we're talking about high frame rate. Like again, with most of these movies, I agree with you guys, like Gemini Man, it wasn't even easily available. Like I couldn't even see it that way. Here, I just happened to like see it that way. And because I think a lot of theaters are showing it that way, this movie. And it's just like, okay, I think everything about the movie, like the 3D, the high frame rate, they were thinking about these things, making it and trying to make it work in the movie, trying to make it pop. Because I think it does enhance certain scenes. I think it looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
and maybe the whole movie even. I just wasn't even thinking about it because, there's so much CGI, there's so much of that in this film. Again, the biggest problem I had with this movie is some of the writing.
Yeah, same.
For me, it's like the first one, just more improved, more modernized, because we have modernized effects now. I wonder how the first one would look in high frame rate. I wonder if it would look better, because I think that's what they did for like that re-release they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
oh, really?
Yeah, we didn't see the re-release.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I just watched it at home, But yeah, again, the problem I had was just the writing. Yeah, like the stuff you guys say, like the Stephen Lang character coming back, it's corny. He has a son. Like, how do you have a son in the first movie? They'd even mention that. But, it's corny, but I didn't really mind it in this movie. For me, it reminded me of, like, Terminator 2. It's just, like, a good action movie, It has good action scenes and good characters. I felt they were fleshed out really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's go back to Spider, because I was gonna add.
Okay.
Yeah, I think his acting was bad. During moments where it required him to not be bad, and I had this kind of thought where, like, okay, yeah, he's the only human character, and so I was paying attention to the one of Jake Sully's children, the youngest one. You can kind of tell that they're probably the same caliber actor as Spider, but because of because it was like a CG face, the animators were able to like sweeten the performance a little. They were able to like give little bits of icing to it and help it in ways that you cannot do with Spider's character. Because if you pay attention to like the performance on the Jake Sully's youngest Avatar baby, like the same issues exist. You can hear it in the voice performance, but there's something that they did with the face to make it more convincing. Whereas the Spider human character, they did not have that option. So it was just kind of unfortunate. Need better child actors, or you need to work with them more closely, James. I find the story of this film to be like kind of like insulting in a way. I just feel like it was just so stupid because the first
really insulting.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of things about the movie are kind of like just really low amounts of respect for audience members. Like the choice to have the entire thing be in English, basically. When you have this Na'vi language that you create, you literally created a language in the last film. And then one of the first lines in this movie, like we get subtitles for like, I don't know, 30 seconds. And then Jake Sully goes, I learned Na'vi pretty quickly. And at this point, they might as well be speaking English. And then just like cut, and the rest of the movie is like
the subtitles
English.
fade out. They fade out. They they fade away, and then they turn into English, and then the whole movie they speak English.
Yeah, like okay, so now it's just like it's like Mass Effect, where you have to imagine that you're seeing something different than what's actually happening, and so you're just getting a translation, even though their lips are syncing. It's not a dub. You're getting like this weird non-existent version of reality of the universe where people are speaking a different language, because you couldn't possibly have audiences reading subtitles for more or American, let's say English speaking audiences. We couldn't possibly have them reading subtitles for more than like 45 seconds in this movie. Like, fuck, it's kind of disrespectful. That really is. It pissed me off.
But that wouldn't bother me though. If then later in the movie, like people just speak English, like I think they're just speaking English in the scene. So it's like hard to even tell, like when they're speaking Na'vi and when they're speaking English, because the whole movie they're just speaking English. It's just
if they're Avatar people speaking to each other, the implication is that they're supposed to be speaking Na'vi.
Yeah, but then when Stephen Lang shows up, he's speaking English.
Yeah, Stephen Lang speaks English, and then he tries to learn Na'vi, and Spider is like better at Na'vi than him, and he becomes a translator. And then in those scenes, it's such a stupid choice where it's like, okay, you're James Cameron, you made the highest grossing movie of all time, and so now you're working with like, okay, production started under Fox, and then way late into the production it moved to Disney. So surely before it got to Disney, these were already choices that were set in stone. Was this a choice that James Cameron made? Was this like, you would have to imagine with this film, he wouldn't have that many like he'd be able to do whatever the fuck he wants, right?
Yeah.
Like the movie he made was just like fucking Titanic, Abyss, Terminator, like all of his other movies he just put into one movie. Like, of course he did what he wanted. So was this his decision? Mm-hmm. And if it was his decision, that wasn't really a decision made for art, was it? Or did he just think like, oh no, I won't make as much money this way, right? That's what I feel overwhelmingly about this film.
That's like a really cynical way to look at it. Like, oh, I just want to make more money, so they're not going to speak Navi.
Why the fuck else would you do it? It's for accessibility,
right? He just wanted to do that.
Oh, because he just wanted to do it? He invented an entire language in the first film. What do you mean he just wanted to do it? You could have had them speaking English in the first film.
Why not?
It does seem like a cynical reason to do it.
I don't know. I don't think he wanted to do
it. It seems like this movie was just made for money, and that's
the whole movie to be them speaking Navi? I don't know. I don't know if that would have worked.
I feel like it's more because the balance of the movie is way more of like to Navi scenes, so most of the movie would be in their language, so I can see from that.
You made a whole
I see what you mean about it.
Yeah,
you invented a language for the movie.
No, but this is the thing that James Cameron is all about, the broadness and the wide appeal. So can you imagine him like for this 3-hour, 12-minute long movie, like every Navi scene being in Navi?
That would have been dope.
Committing that hard with all the kit. Yeah, I don't know that, but you can see from his perspective, he's probably like that narrows the appeal, baby. Like we don't have the balance of that first movie with the. Yeah, but that's always been the thing, right? Like the characters they have a certain shallowness to them. Like the good guys are very good, the bad guys are very bad, and it is more about the spectacle.
They're
and
beautiful
the
blue people that look like cats, big eyes. They're the most appealing. Like they're like minions. They're like the most appealing. Like you want to buy toys of them or whatever.
They're very synthetic and
exactly
and understandable.
That's understandable in a way because like you're. In the first film, he stuck with the most recycled, unoriginal story ever, but I could see what it was in service of. The story was not the focus of the film. It was presenting this new world. It was about the visual experience. It was about, he created a language, he created a culture, he created all of this lore, this like all this backstory where you could read like a bunch of comic books and there's like an encyclopedia of shit behind it if you wanted to discover it. And it was to entice you into this world and be like, oh wow, this sense of discovery. And that's why this basic recycled plot, which has been used in other films to sort of exemplify and showcase those same sort of emotions, was used for that film, is because that was not the focus. And now in the second film, he created a much dumber story where it's just like, oh, I just want to, I'm going to kill Jake Sully and I just want to kill him badly because he killed my other body.
Because he killed me. Yeah, because he wants revenge.
Yeah, and now it's like a really petty revenge mission. Right, where it's just like, he's just gonna kill you, and we
got to talk about like that. Like, so the reason the humans are back is because they want to like colonize. Well, Edie Falco's in the movie. She wants to like colonize Pandora because Earth is like polluted or whatever. I think she said something like that, right? Like Earth is destroyed. Earth is dying. Like, all right. And then they changed the MacGuffin or whatever of this movie from what was it called? Unobtainium in the first movie. Yeah, now there's like a new element.
Yeah, you can live forever if you kill the whales.
Into the lore. Yeah, there's like some kind of serum you get out of the whales, right, that makes you live forever. So that's like the new kind of thing that they'll probably use from now on in the sequels. And I was like, yeah, that's a bit more creative than like what they came up with in the first movie. So I thought that was an improvement, but I thought that was funny how they kind of just changed like the whatever, the MacGuffin or whatever you want to call it, the element.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me what the element is. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
It's definitely a little better.
It's like totally not
the movie better.
What the movie is to me. All I wanted out of this film was to experience that same sense of discovery and wonder, and just like, the shots in the trailer where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like flying along with the flying creatures, I'm swimming with the swimming creatures, and I got that for 30 minutes out of a 3-hour plus long movie. And the rest of it was so fucking boring. And the rest of it was an absolute fucking chore to get through. That 30 minutes was awesome, though. I really enjoyed that 30 minutes.
the middle when they're in the whales.
Yeah, when they're doing the thing and they're learning they're like, we're teaching you how to do this thing from this other culture. I'm like, oh yeah, we're experiencing that same shit again. I wouldn't have minded if they copied and pasted the entire story from the first movie. I was just so not into Stephen Lang's character and like, they kind of did like
the Stephen Lang stuff. Yeah. But the humans come back. That's like, because like the thing before this movie came out, it's like, what is it about? And pretty quickly they established the humans are just back and they're just trying to like do the same shit they did in the first movie, colonize Pandora, right?
Yeah, but
Do
it
whatever.
felt like most of the movie was the conflict of just like Stephen Lang getting revenge.
Yeah, most of it. But they were also setting these seeds, I guess, for future movies they want to make with like, you know, Edie Falco there. Like she doesn't do a lot in the movie. They're basically just setting her up for future movies. And like they just set up a lot of little things. But I did like that they were like taking their time with it and just like, okay, we're going to focus on this main story. Like it didn't feel rushed in any way to me. I thought it was actually pretty well paced. They weren't like constantly cramming in like references or like setting up things for future movies, kind of like they do with Marvel movies now. Like, you know, like I don't hate Ant-Man, but I didn't like when like Hawkeye or whatever his name is, now Captain America showed up or whatever. And like that was like so thrown in, and there was nothing in this movie that felt that way to me. Everything was like, okay, the story's moving forward. They're setting things up for future movies, but you know, it does really indulge in like certain parts, like that really great half-hour part, like you're saying, Adam, where they're like in the ocean.
That's all I wanted.
And then the last hour of the movie is action, and I thought that was like fucking awesome. That whole last part of the film.
There were parts
was, like,
of the action I liked. Yeah.
really cool. It's like the whole last part of the movie, but yeah,
there were parts of that I liked.
Yeah, I especially liked when it becomes Titanic and they're kind of trapped inside the ship. I thought that stuff was excellent.
That was awesome, and it looked really cool. And yeah, James Cameron's a great like action director. I really like how the characters were like, you know, like some of them get captured and get brought on the ship, so they have to go get them, and then some of them escape, and then some of them go back, and you know, it's this fun like play with like all the characters and like where they are in the scene. Like some of them are like fleeing and some of them are stuck, and like they play a lot with that. It's fun. It's like fun to see them go back and forth escaping the ship, and you know, I don't know. I thought all that was really cool. It was really exciting, that last hour of the film.
There were parts of that last hour that stuck with me. You know, there were certain moments of it where it's like, oh, they just cut that guy's arm off. Like that was fun. But
yeah, that was fun.
the action set piece as a whole, I feel like I would have enjoyed more if A, I cared about any of the characters and any of the consequences to those characters, and B, if I hadn't been lulled into a fucking coma for the previous 2 hours of the experience. Because I was just so fucking checked out. I was just like, oh my God. Like just, it was really difficult to care or pay attention after a certain point when I was just... The whole first hour of the movie was like a frustrating fucking chore. It was just genuinely frustrating.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really like those characters. Like the characters in this movie were so much better to me than in that first movie. I was just like, yeah, I really like these characters. I enjoyed
shit about these characters.
That whole that's fun. I enjoyed seeing their journey. I enjoyed the whole movie because I really cared about the characters. That's what made the action so good at the end.
I'm glad that they killed off the son that looked the most like Jake Sully, because I was so confused at points where they weren't opening their mouths. I thought I was watching Jake Sully in some scenes, and then I wasn't. I was like, oh shit, it was the other kid. Before they spoke, it was like too similar.
Well, yeah, they were definitely developing that other brother like much more. The other brother was like, I think, a little more developed. So I was kind of like, oh man, are they going to kill that brother? And that's what they did.
Yeah,
I was more disappointed with like just the fact that there are so many like young kind of kiddie characters and the kind of tropes that come along with that, like the water avatars bullying like teenagers, like the other ones
like
for their weird hands, and it's like, man, I feel like the stakes were so much higher in that first movie, and I was never.
Did I miss something, or did they just not address that those kids tried to murder one of Jake's kids? Did I miss something, or did they not address that was like
I was
an
surprised by
murder?
how they kind of just let that go.
Yeah, like what the fuck? You're not gonna like tell anyone that happened? Like they literally tried to murder you.
Right. Some of the writing is off. Like, how are they gonna deal with the next movie? The fact that like Neytiri held a knife to like Spider's throat. Like, are they just gonna like forget about that?
They'll probably bring it back up.
Like, oh yeah, you tried to like kill me, but that's fine. Like, you're still my avatar mom.
I mean, she didn't. She just gave him a scratch.
Yeah, gave him a scratch, or almost killed him. She would have killed him, maybe.
I don't know if she would have. I don't believe she would have, actually.
I think the shot before you see her, she's like acting like psychotic, obviously, because she lost her son.
Yeah,
like,
she's trying to.
Yeah, she's kind of scary.
She's crazy.
In that scene,
yeah,
to make it seem like she would.
There was a guy laughing on that scene. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, people laughed at weird parts in the movie. I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah.
Where she was like who was like, someone was like injured and they go back into the hut and she's like, stop, you're not helping, or like, you're doing nothing. Like, and then everybody in the theater laughed and I was like, what? I didn't understand why everybody laughed at that part. That was so weird. So I was going to say earlier, the first film was, it felt like, okay, I'm going to accept that this is just like a cliched, recycled, been done before, by the books, paint by numbers story, because it's in service of presenting this new world and being able to just like dive right into it and getting the sense of wonder, blah, blah, blah. The music worked perfectly, everything, blah, 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 blah. And the second film, I don't get that impression. I'm looking at all of these crazy effects and the fucking so much money poured into this and every effort that this film is taking, and I'm going like, what is this in service of? It's not in service of, like, is it in service of that half hour that I got out of it? Or is it in service of, it felt like that wasn't the whole point of the movie. Just that tiny half hour that I got out of it. It felt like the whole point of the movie was just a cash grab. And that's it.
Really, it felt it's just, this is one of the things for me is like, part of my disappointment is just how similar its goals to that first movie. And in saying that out loud, I don't even know why I'm surprised by that, to be honest. Like, it is. Like, they're talking about 5 of these movies or however many they have planned. Is it going to be like Avatar, the freedom of fire, you know? And like, then they go to the fireplace and then there's the scene where they're with the fire animals and there's one that fly, you know, like, it's like the same beats as that first movie, like, again. And I was like putting too much faith, I guess, in Cameron and maybe taking all those like decade worth of critiques of that first movie about that story, about these characters, and maybe trying to do something to address that. And I guess he did from his perspective with this, like, these kid characters and Sigourney Weaver playing a like teenager and stuff. But yeah, I just wasn't as invested in that. I kind of wanted to see especially more from the Jake Sully character, because that is kind of the main conflict, like him being hunted and he is bringing this like war wherever he tries to escape. But there is like this down point in the middle of the movie where there's just like a lack of tension for me. I know that it kept cutting to the bad guy, like doing the beats from the first movie of him, like going with Spider, like, so they could go back into those environments and do the flying scenes
wrangle a
again.
bird.
Yeah, get one of the banshees or whatever.
Yeah, but it wasn't hitting that same way for me. Yeah, so by the time I was getting to that crazy impressive final, like 40 minutes or whatever it is, in a vacuum, I really like. I think it's like expert action. It's like beautifully achieved and storyboarded, and everything is so clear, and yeah, it's exciting as hell. But I just didn't have that investment, especially when it has the whole like one of the kids gets taken out, and like I barely knew anything about the guy. I just didn't really feel anything when
it was a real who gives a shit moment for me.
Yeah.
Okay, kill him.
I guess I was just waiting for some kind of hook to like raise the stakes or get me in a bit more, that kind of justifies it beyond the blunt kind of like amusement park ride kind of feeling it has at times. Like as soon as it opens, I kind of felt like I was in, because it just opens on showing off like Pandora in the environment for like a while, and it's like it feels like the start of a ride almost. It's like it's almost self-aware of that in a way.
Yeah, it does feel like a ride. That's kind of why I liked it. I mean, that's like what the first one is too. I feel like a lot of what we're saying is like the same thing with the first one. Yeah, like the story's hollow, characters aren't great. I feel like it's better in this one.
This was a longer, more boring ride.
It's more how long it is to me. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I thought the pacing was really good for it, but I just like those characters. Like I did like that scene when like the brother died or whatever. I think Zoe Saldana really sold it too in that scene too. To be fair, like I thought she was really good in that scene. I think she's really good the whole movie.
Oh yeah, she's great.
I wanted more from her. Yeah.
I think the acting is great all around. I even like Stephen Lang in this movie. I thought he was better in this movie. I just like the stuff with him and Spider. I thought
she
all that
is
was cool.
Great, but she's kind of like falling into this weird pattern of repetition where I'm just like, oh great, you're crying again, and it's great. She's great at it. But it just feels like that's what she's there for now. It's just to like cry like that. For like we're gonna see it again in the third movie. She's just gonna be crying the whole movie. Like we already know what the third movie is gonna be. It's just gonna be the exact same shit again. want to at least try to go into, or maybe you can help me with this to understand why I feel so off about the plot of this movie. Because if I can rationalize it, the fact that there's this revenge story now where it's like, okay, he's got this squad of people, and I guess the Earth military is just literally funding his revenge now. Like, that's a mission. They decided to become blue avatar people. I think part of the reason why it's so off-putting to me is because it gives me a different impression. I don't know if it's more accurate or less accurate, but it gives me a very different impression than I had in the first movie of like the scale of the universe, of the scale of like Pandora and the planet or whatever. Because the way that these characters just keep meeting up, like the kids just run into him basically. They were like, oh, we're seeing the things that landed, like, okay, your kids are going to be the one to do it, that like they're just going to be alone with him right now at the beginning of the movie. It's like, okay, it's just going to be you, like just you characters, no other characters are there, okay. And then like they just keep it's like they just keep fucking bumping into each other. I'm like, how big is this fucking...
They were hunting for them too, so it wasn't like they weren't like searching all of Pandora. They were searching,
but they literally ran into each other. The first interaction was
it's the kids. It's the kids because it's dramatic. But but
that's kind of annoying.
Again, I'm not saying the writing isn't corny. I don't think it's really annoying. I mean, it made for cool action, but whatever. I don't know. That's just like these things.
I don't know. And then like I don't know. Like, how big is a planet? How big is a planet? Like, how many tribes did they contact? Did they contact any other tribes other than the water tribe in the first, like... We could have seen that.
I don't know. None of that bothered me. That's kind of like...
It's just, it feels like so weirdly small scale when the impression that I feel like I should be having of Pandora and the universe that Jim Cameron created is that it should be a large scale thing. It feels like it weirdly betrays the universe in my mind. Exact same feeling I have with the let's do the whole thing in English. It's like, well, you created this fucking thing that, like, why aren't you using it? Why are you doing this weirdly small scale story in what should be a large scale universe? It's just... Yeah,
maybe it's...
pisses me off.
It's comparison to that first movie, right? Because in that original 2009 one, there's that whole beat where like Jake goes around to all the different tribes around Pandora and like lines them together.
Yeah, like the forest part. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this introduced like a whole other part of the world for me. Like, it's not... And it feels small scale. It's like, oh, we're exploring new parts of Pandora now. And probably, in future movies we'll explore more.
Yeah. Next movie, they'll do the Fire Tribe.
They'll do fire or whatever other element.
Probably.
Yeah, I think they said they're going to do... snow. That would be kind of cool. But
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, like snow, Navi. Yeah, something like that. They're going to do something like that. But, it's just like these things, like... I didn't really harp on the language thing. I kind of forgot about it. I didn't harp on any of those things. I'm like, it's a little... The writing's a little corny. It's a James Cameron movie. The writing in the first one's corny. The writing in Titanic is corny. It just didn't bother me. I just really like the characters.
It just felt like it didn't just feel corny. It felt like so fucking transparent. It felt like the same sort of annoyances I had with like A Quiet Place at points, where I'm just like, oh, you don't even care how it gets to this point. You're just getting there. I don't see characters anymore. I see props for the script.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I would have these problems if I saw it like in 2D. because it's like so much fun. It's just so much fun seeing the movie. What do you mean? What? I mean, it was just so much fun seeing it. Don't laugh at me. What do you mean? I mean, it was so much fun seeing it in 3D and 48 frames a second. It was like an amusement park ride.
But I just think that those are separate things. I don't know.
I bet without the 48 frames in the 3D, if I was just watching it like on my TV or whatever, just like a normal like environment, I'd be like, oh yeah, these characters are like, they're a little hollow. It's a little corny at times. But yeah, it really did feel like an amusement park ride. I'm like, I'm having fun. Like, but this experience is kind of like being back in Pandora.
I got that for 30 minutes.
Yes, the amusement park thing is like a interesting beat to me. Because like it's always like in the news, like movie news and stuff, like especially since that Scorsese comment about like Marvel and big Hollywood films, and that's just always it was always in the back of my mind with this, thinking about it from that angle. The line between yeah, like what is it we're trying to get out of this? Is it like a story we're going to remember, or is it purely just those visuals and the environmental storytelling? And it's just a repeat of history, man. It's like the same conversation as the 2009 one to me. I was really hoping to get more of a stronger emotional reaction, to be honest. I don't know. Also, the Na'vi, they're just kind of creepy, man.
Yeah, they are
creepy
kind of
looking.
creepy and annoying. I felt like I did get an emotional reaction out of the first movie, and I just like, it was just so blank and absent, and like just such nothingness in this movie for me emotionally. Just couldn't get anything out of it. It was really, you could have gone anywhere. You could have gone anywhere with this story, and you just had it like, oh, I want to kill you, and that's it. Like that was the whole story. It was just so annoying.
Yeah, I was expecting more from the story, and it does make me question, like, for these sequels, do you want them to keep getting bigger and bigger, like, financially as well? Is that, like, a big concern of yours? Because surely at this point, you found that you've made Titanic, you've made Avatar 1. Is what you want to say with this purely just, like, visual, for the most part, you know? Like, because, you know, these characters and the plot is, like, so similar. It's so... These beats, you already made the joke about the amalgamation of all the kind of previous things he's worked with in his catalog, and he's like, yeah, I guess it is whether that theme park kind of nature gels with you or not. And I got to admit, it was getting me at certain points, but it was just the runtime. I was feeling it at points.